Hey everybody, I'm Heather Boll and I'm here to walk each and every one of you through some really exciting content. And I love interacting through the chat too. So if there's any questions or anything that you want to ask, please just drop them in the comments and we'll be able to go through that as well. So thank you for being here. I'm so excited to get started. It's already 6:30 here. I think it's 4:30 where you guys are at, but it is 6:30. I'm here in Minnesota. My name is Heather Boll, like I had said. My topic that I'm going to be talking about is a few different things. I'm going to be talking about, so I run 3 different peer support run businesses in the state of Minnesota. I became a state certified peer support specialist in 2017. Like a lot of you, if you're a peer specialist yourself or a peer supporter, I've come to see that a lot of people, they stumble across it in a peculiar way, or they find it through their own recovery journey. And that's how it was for me. I think I stumbled across an article and immediately I felt drawn. I was like, this is exactly what I'm here to do. And ironically, I am born on September 10th, which is World Suicide Prevention and Awareness Day. So I think, like I often say, I'm literally born to do this work. So I will begin with my story, a little bit of my story, and then I'm going to talk professionally. I'm going to talk about different healing modalities and how I infuse those into my practice, and all the things. And I'll be happy to answer some of those questions. So my story begins in 3rd grade. I was about 8 years old when I began experiencing symptoms of anxiety, depression, and ADHD, suicide ideation, and self-harm. And in that time, it's the late 80s, early 90s, we didn't understand a lot about mental health. A statistic that I find interesting, that it wasn't until 1983, again, the year I was born, where they took out in the Christian, specifically Catholic doctrine, that committing suicide was a sin, and committing suicide was also a crime, right? So think of the stigma associated with that. That was only 39 years ago, where we took that out and we changed the verbiage to die by suicide. And we've understood that so much. So again, some really beautiful synchronicities. And so 1983, I was born, and in 3rd grade is when all these symptoms really boiled up. My parents are phenomenal people. I really honor and get that they did the best that they could with the tools that they have. Now, they were emotionally mature. They had addictions, domestic abuse in there, very, I think at their core, very loving. But through that, I experienced physical, sexual, financial, and spiritual trauma and neglect. It was, again, a really dark and hard time. I have a lot of what we call complex PTSD. So a string of very traumatic things that happened to me in my childhood. I would say the sexual trauma would be one that really, really resonated and had a lot of pain there. So when I was 14, I decided you plant corn, you get corn. And I know we can change our trajectory, but I started using drugs and alcohol just like them to self-medicate, soothe, and take care of my pain. And like a lot of us, it's sort of the perfect storm, right? It numbs, it turns it off. I mean, in high school, college, there's a lot of acceptance around it. And that form of self-harm at the time was really, really tough. I got in trouble with the law. It was like a constant string of really poor choices and utilizing drugs and alcohol. So when I was 24, I got clean and sober, cold turkey, because I really wanted to have a family. So what I didn't know then at the time was how much generational garbage and baggage I was carrying around. And as I had kids of my own, I was in a constant state of triggers and pain and just repeating the same dysfunctional cycles. So that is when I dove really headfirst into the system of receiving services and support. And like a lot of you'll hear different things like, the system is broken and there's gaps and all the things. And it's so true. And when I found peer support, I said, peer support is the bridge. That is the gap filler, right? I often will call it the secret sauce in mental health, because all I ever wanted to know was if somebody got better, or like there was hope attached to that, right? So it's like, please, somebody tell me that they have gotten through this and that they're okay. So as a lot of you know, that's one of the most beautiful things about peer support, is that we jump down into that hole of despair and hopelessness, and we go out together because we've been in that hole and we have the tools, the map, right, the lived experience, the wisdom to get out. So in 2027, I opened first and foremost, I scoured the internet top to bottom, everywhere, to try to find a business. And for me, it was an LLC, which is considered for-profit entity, limited liability corporation. And that was important to me because I didn't want to be a nonprofit. I didn't want to be an S corp or a corporation. I wanted to be a business, an LLC, a private practice, right? Because I really think to be the change, we have to do it different. Not that those entities are wrong or bad, but I just wanted to really do something that had never been done before. So scoured the internet, social media, all the things. I could not find a peer support, let's say in air quotes, a private practice that was private pay. And I'll get to that in a moment, because a lot of insurance companies in 2017, I think there was only one insurance company that we could bill at the time. So I did this private practice, right? And I started serving people. I did everything from a sliding scale to, $20 an hour and everything in between. And people kept coming and coming and coming, and it was working. I was basically paycheck to paycheck. I rented a very small office in a gym. That it was a fitness studio, and I had this little office. And thinking back already, it just feels so weird, because I'm like, how did I even get anybody to come through that door? It was like the most awkward and weird thing, but I never made it that way for the people I served. I was so thankful that people with similar lived experience were coming forward and seeking my wisdom and lived experience, and most importantly, hope. So they kept coming, right? And I grew to a point where I'm like, wow, I can now afford an office in a professional building. So I started officing out of this professional building. I'm like, oh my gosh, it was just perfect. And I was also booking national speaking engagements at the time. And I was like, in my head, right, I'm like, I am going to be the next Brene Brown, Oprah, Rachel Hollis, Mel Robbins. And March 2020 came. The wind was knocked out of my sail. Everything was shut down. The pandemic was, in that very early part, and everything came to a screeching halt, including my momentum, my hope, everything. And life just continues to unfold in the most peculiar, beautiful ways. So I'm a big vision board person, and I had this blue house on my vision board for 3 years. And I called it the Heal Her House. My first idea was that I wanted to do a peer support respite home. And again, I think we come up with ideas, but God, universe, whatever higher power, if you believe in any, they will give us a totally different and often better circumstances. So the house came available in March 2020. And I was like, of course, right? Like, what am I going to do with this? I can't afford it, all of the things. So I went to the people who owned it and I said, look, it needs a lot of work. Can I put all the work into it, like pro bono for free, and take over the payments in 3 months? And they were like, you bet. Everything was shut down. So it often saved me through COVID. I have 3 young kids who are doing distant learning, and they did their distant learning there. And I poured myself into creating this space that is now called the Hive. The Hive, Minnesota, or the Hive Waconia. It's at the Hive Waconia. I live in Waconia, Minnesota. And I brought in my first LLC, which is Heal Her Peer Support. And at the time, it was the very first private LLC ran entity of its kind. There was no other one. And if there was, it just wasn't on the internet or social media. Of course, I think there were other things out there, but they just weren't visible, right? But I like to say that I was one of the first pioneers of it because I really truly was. Even Department of Human Services didn't know it, I'm like, can I do this when I went through my training? And they were like, yeah, as long as you're not billing insurance, right? Because you need supervision and all these different things. And so it felt like I was doing something wrong or bad just because nobody had done it before. So I jumped all in and I did the Heal Her Peer Support was my first LLC that I started. And then in 2020, I opened up the Hive, which is a DBA. It's under the umbrella of Heal Her Peer Support. And this entity is a community-based peer support entity where I really wanted it to be accessible, affordable, and fun. So we are peer support specialists who provide groups. We used to call them circles. Now we call them groups, like group coaching and whatnot, and peer support ran. So, and it's all spectrums of our wellness, the whole person, right? So it will be mind, body, soul, spirit. And we just do everything from autoimmune to yoga, to breath work, to trauma, to grief, to LGBTQ plus. There's just a gamut of things. We try to really listen to what the needs of our community are and then provide something for them. We don't turn anybody away. So we can do that feasibly with this model because we're already doing it and we have a really good system. So it's a way, and then also virtual options, right? We put in virtual options that are free for everybody because you can get something. Like, I know there's warm lines and all the different things out there, but you're able to cultivate a relationship with these peers and do it week after week after week at the most affordable rates that can be. So if you go to Hive, HIVEMN.com, you can view events, workshops, and different things. Because I have ADHD and we are kind of dopamine ran, right? It has to be fun. So I wanted people to be celebrated and honored no matter where they were in their recovery journey, that you can come in and do a fun class and heal, repair, amend as you go. It doesn't have to be, let's drag everybody through their trauma. And I'm not saying that's wrong or bad, but for me, that's what I felt called to serve. And that is what we did in 2020. And it worked so beautifully. We are a member based. So we charge a membership. Our lowest is $18 per week. And that gets you unlimited circles or group coaching. And then we have different tier memberships for what people are interested in. And we started putting in some of those alternative healing modalities that I'm going to talk about in a little bit to help. I like to touch a little bit on this too. I'm sure a lot of you guys know the statistics, but I'm just going to reiterate them. In the nation, suicide is still one of the highest leading causes of death. And this is I got all my statistics from the National Institute of Mental Health and their data. So anyone, if there's new and stuff, correct me, of course, if I'm wrong here, but 45,900 people per year die of suicide. Suicide's still the second leading cause from 10 to 14-year-olds, third, 24 to 34. And it had a 35% increase since 2020. And we all, see the headlines with Twitch or the Miss America, all these different people. And a lot of people in the public platform are coming forward with their stories, which is great, but we still have a lot of work to do. I live in a very small Christian conservative community that still doesn't want to, for lack of better words, address that mental health, addiction, suicide, and things like that are real. So putting up businesses on Main Street kind of invoked a lot of triggers and things. So when we are doing something that's never been done before, or very few have, it's like I wasn't prepared. Well, I guess I say I was. It was still really hard, but I wasn't really anticipating the backlash and the the ugly side of business, right? Like people thinking that I was pretending to be a therapist or a counselor, people who, didn't see that I could do this, right? So that really, even those closest to me. And so the reason I'm sharing all that too is if you feel unworthy or like that you have insecurities about doing this work, that it's normal. And I think that most peers do until we get more seasoned, because as you continue, if you start seeing the fruits of your labor and how impactful you are, it will definitely help fill that. So 31% of US adults experience anxiety. We know the demand for mental health professionals, including peer support specialists, are going to be through the roof by the time we, in like, what was it, like 10 years or something. The last National Peer Support Conference, if you have not ever been, I encourage you to go. It's awesome. The next one is in Norfolk, Virginia in October. So there's a lot of great things there, lots of great work to be had. Okay. So most of us, I think everybody for the most part knows what peer support is. If you don't, we are individuals who use lived experience to serve others on a mutual level. And I believe in the whole person, the whole self, right? So really finding out, by radical listening, validation, and strength-based, right? What's going well in your life? Let's focus on that, and the rest will come around with, again, deep listening, validation, and helping people see that the shadow part or the adversity in their life is most likely a turning point or one of the most powerful pivots that they have, and that they will ultimately find, if, not everybody, but I think most people I've worked with, that they were able to use that to create purpose, passion, and do really good things with it. Some of the other holistic and healing modalities that I use are, first and foremost, the mind-body connection, right? Like, I love somatics and reading about somatics, but finding the sensation in our body, finding the connection between our minds and our hearts. I did this through my own journey with a lot of guided imagery and meditation. So I'm a skeptic at heart, and I didn't think any of these were like actually going to work. I love neuroscience and whatnot, but they work. Breath work was one of the biggest things for me and a lot that I serve. So when I was receiving services for my mental health and substance journey, I didn't get a lot of techniques and tools to practice, right? Tangible things. So it's always a lot of what I do too is, and a lot of you, is really providing what I say, a buffet of options for them to pick and choose what resonates and works with the peers. And a lot of times they will come back and be like, oh my gosh, like that breath work relieved my overwhelm, my stress, and my sensory overload. And then I was able to meditate, and I felt like I was present for the first time in a long time. Right. And so peer supports, coaches, mentors, all the things, healers in general, healers are here to guide, right? We don't replace anybody or anything. I believe everybody has these tools and this wisdom within, and our job is to guide them to find those matches anyway. Okay. The other thing I like to teach, I don't know if you guys are all around the US, but QPR, question, persuade, refer. It is the CPR of crisis, emergency, suicide, ideation, and if that turns to suicidal attempts and whatnot, it stands for question, persuade, refer. And I'm a huge advocate. There's the QPR Institute that can provide this training. It's often free, but it is so helpful if you are serving those who have suicide ideation, self-harm. You get to say, hey, do you have any plans of hurting yourself today? No, it ends there. Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about it. We persuade them not to. And then they're like, yeah, but I just, I don't see a way out of this. I'm feeling really hopeless and helpless. We refer and get help and support for those individuals. So if you have not yet taken that, it's a super, super great one. I'm a big fan of Mental Health America. I was an ambassador for Mental Health Minnesota for a lot of years. I love their before stage 4 campaign. They also have assessments and confidential anonymous assessments to take as a like maybe a beginner tool to take to a doctor, a peer support specialist, or therapist and whatnot. Really great back to school campaigns and a lot of initiatives, warm lines, great things. WRAP, the Wellness Recovery Action Planning. I know I hear a lot about that, but that's a really great one for families and things. So if you looking into those are really, really great. All right, so we'll keep going. Energy medicine, energy healing, Reiki, chakras, all the thing, right? Going back to the fact that I was very skeptical. I was like, this is a bunch of, woo-woo. Well, it was one of the biggest healing modalities that I have experienced and have since read and dove into quantum physics, things that are published and medical journals and all the incredible things that come with that. At the Hive, we have two different kinds. We have a shamanic Reiki, and then we have a Japanese Reiki masters, and they do a lot of incredible work, and they're a great modality for a lot of trauma, trapped energy that is manifesting itself as disease or pain. I did a lot of inner childhood healing through Reiki, and it was just great. EFT, emotional freedom techniques, tapping, and again, the chakra balancing. Our chakra systems are very real and very, they're starting to teach that more in massage, acupuncture, cupping, chiropractic, right? They're teaching a lot about that. Okay, I'm going to take a moment and just read through a few of these questions because people were asking. No, I don't have a PowerPoint, but I provided all this information I'm reading for you, Jane. Please provide information again on the conference in October. Oh, yes. So it is October, I want to say 27th and 28th, Norfolk, Virginia, and that is NAPS. That is National Association for Peer Supporters. It was formerly called INAPS, but they have it out there. And again, all this stuff, I did provide this that I made for y'all. It's the packet with everything that I'm going through. So I hope that they do post it. They said that they were going to post it. So I apologize, or at least give it out that you don't have that, but we'll make sure we get it to you. Polyvagal theory, vagal nerve, vagal toning. Again, this stuff is just like so fascinating to me, right? Like how can we get into our vagus nerve and tone? That's where the vibrational therapy, the crystal bowls, there's so many ways we do this instinctively, humming, gargling, singing, screaming, like some of the things we just naturally do tone that vagus nerve. Our vagus nerve runs from the back of the stem of our brain all the way down to the gut. And our gut actually creates a majority of our serotonin. So gut health, like we'll hear these things over and over. That's what is so fascinating about why gut health is so important for our overall wellness. So the polyvagal theory, right? It's a theory. It's not anything that's been proven, but I like to do this through humming and chanting, gargling, etc. So vibrational healing sound baths. If anyone's had a sound bath, I'd love to hear your experience in the chat, because again, this was a modality that I received originally, and then started teaching as part of my peer support practice. So I use crystal singing bowls. I also use binaural beats. I write my own scripts and different things. But what these do is they do what's called entrainment. So it's 1 hertz here, 1 hertz here, and it will get the brain to go to a very meditative state quickly. That would be our theta. And then our delta is when we're sleeping. So there's beta, alpha, theta, and delta. And so what it does is it gets us to reach our theta state, which is meditative state. And then people are able to calm their nervous system. They're able to go into meditation. They're able to be present, all the things. It's a really powerful. And the best part of the crystal singing bowls or Tibetan bowls are that they are played intuitively. So if you are intimidated by them, please don't be. Kids can play them. If you've ever taken your finger and licked it and went around like a wine glass and made that vibration or that sound, that's the same thing essentially. We have bowls that are tuned A through G that go with the chakra system. And again, our yogis and some of the Reiki people, they get really into it. I have what's called an aerial studio. So there are silk hammocks, and our guests come in, they lay in the silks, they have a sound bath, and then their meditation is done in that. And again, this is all on our website if you want to take a peek there. But again, the vibrational healing, it calms and balances the nervous system. Most of us are operating in the sympathetic nervous system, our fight or flight response. And this gets us to our parasympathetic nervous system, rest and digest. And that is where we are able to have that healing at a cellular level. We are 70% water. Water has memory. So these vibrations, they actually stay. And the coolest thing in our bodies, the coolest thing that I've seen with this practice is those who are going through cancer treatment. And this isn't anything I advertised or put out there, but those who are in chemotherapy treatment, they feel, for whatever reason, right? I've done some research on it, but they feel peaceful, good, less nausea, they're calm, they can sleep, their pain is minimized in these sound baths. So there are people that come all over, they're like driving all over the place looking for sound baths because they get peace and rest during that going through chemo treatment. So that's been a really beautiful thing to serve in that way for those individuals. But there are sound bowls, Tibetan, Himalayan. You can do binary beats, gongs, Akashi chimes, tuning forks, ocean drums, and more. Nervous system regulation. One of my favorite things, right? Like getting into our nervous system and the autonomic part of our nervous system too, how that works, like educating the peers that we serve on these things. You know, people, they don't even know what fight or flight sometimes is. So we have to be really big educators on that. I lived in fight or flight 90% of my life, and I had adrenal fatigue and cortisol through the roof. And I was constantly in a reactive state. Once my nervous system now that I have the tools to bring my nervous system into the parasympathetic, rest and digest, I'm able to respond, be peaceful and calm, and make really good choices rather than the constant reaction. You can, Brian Weissman is one of the psychologists that wrote on past life regression. Those who believe this is in the Hindu. Again, I love dabbling in all these different doctrines, religions, whatever, spirituality. And there are people that believe that we've been here multiple times and that we have, that we're carrying, we know that through, yes, thank you, Brian Weiss. I think I said Weissman. Many Lives, Many Masters of the book. And it just changed a lot of how I thought. I was like, oh my gosh, right? In the book, they talk about the trauma and the pain that this woman was harboring and released through that therapy. Somatics is another great one, especially for complex PTSD or developmental trauma. An excellent one. If anyone knows, TRE, tension release exercises, are another thing that I've been reading on for releasing stored pain and trauma, especially in the back and the hips and whatnot. Yoga, those are all good modalities. Now, one of my favorite things to talk on at the end here is off-label pharmaceuticals and plant-based medicine. So this is getting a lot of attention in all over the place with microdosing. I live in Minnesota, so marijuana is medicinally legal here. We also have a ketamine clinic that is legal here for those with PTSD, complex PTSD, and let's say treatment-resistant depression. So those are two that I'm very familiar with, and I've seen the benefits from those treatments. Ketamine has to be kept up. I mean, so does marijuana, but the benefits in the studies, like they're very diverse and they're, kind of all over the place. For every, article you read that it's good, you might read 2 or 3 that counter it, but everybody has to be, very educated and go into these things with a open mind and heart, and have the correct professionals to be guiding you on that. So psilocybin, microdosing with LSD and magic mushrooms. That's another thing. I think in Colorado, I think it's already been either decriminalized or legal. And then there's people here in Minnesota that say it's a spore, it's a mushroom, it's it's not a drug. And those that microdose and have got off antidepressants, anti-anxiety. And again, I'm disclaimer here, I'm not recommending anybody do this or without extensive research and your doctor knows permission, what have you. But there are a lot of really great things out there to that are pointing that these can work for some folks. Ayahuasca, DMT is another one that people have found some benefits, but having there's a lot of great screening. I know several people that have done it. And if you have depression, anxiety, traumas, certain things, you're not a candidate. So going through the screening process and whatnot, and finding it in the most ethical, great place. And if that's for you, that you have the utmost research and professionals guiding you. But if anybody has questions or comments on that, I'm all ears. If you have any information, studies, things that we can share. Okay. So these are some apps and books that I love to share with those that I serve, the peers that I serve. So Insight Timer is a free meditation app. Be Okay is a deep breathing app. And Think Up is an affirmation app. You can also use the voice recorder on your phone, but these are really great apps for rewiring those old neural pathways, right? So when we're stuck in the old neural pathways, we need tools to help get us into rewiring the new habits, the new neural pathways. Then I wrote all my favorite books on all the different things. And again, I hope you guys can get your hands on this because they're really, really good resources on here. And then I'm going to jump back real quick. Oh, no, I did that. Okay, good. So business-wise, before I answer the questions here on the business side of what I do. So I like to talk, again, this is for inspiration and whatnot. I went from a sole entrepreneur in 2017 to a team of over 20 individuals in 2023. We have everything we have a doctor on our team to, again, energy Reiki masters, to nutritionists, to yogis, to fitness. We have coaches and consultants. We have men, women, all the things to, again, support. So when an individual comes in to the Hive, I will do a complimentary visit to hear all the needs that this individual needs, right? Like, what are the needs? And then I help plug them in with the right professional. So it's a time efficient and financial efficiency to get people the help that they need. And then from there, they get hooked up with that individual, right? We are a private pay entity. I'm excited for more options on to serve more. Like I said, we have scholarships and things that we do. I don't think we've really ever turned anybody away due to scholarships. And then we, really want to make sure that people are, we have a lot of great resources too. That's what I'll say is I never let anybody leave empty-handed, right? Like in any way. I help get today, for instance, I had an individual walk in who was very all over the place. And he seemed very distraught, and we know the scope of practice. I got him plugged in to a resource down the road. I've had other resources in different towns serve and help. We have great connections and collaborations with all kinds of different people and things to get everybody the help that they need. Then from there, an individual gets the services and help that they need, and we have members, we have people that come individually, we have all the things. And yeah, it's just been a really incredible journey. In 2021, next to the Hive, I opened the Apiary The Apiary is the Aerial Studio, and that was more of the holistic spiritual modalities. The actual motive and the value for that was that it would help get people in the door and feel like a safe, confrontation-free way to help people kind of get their toe wet. Because like I said, I was fighting the stigma and that like hard, like people felt like they were really embarrassed to come in, or if anyone saw them come in, that they couldn't handle that. But if they went to the apiary for, a sound bath and floating meditation, that was okay. But it really helped give people a safe space. Then we also do retreats. That's the next thing that we start doing, because people are all on different levels. Our retreats are seemingly for people who are, very evolved and further down the healing journey, and they still want more. For example, we have a retreat this weekend at Pequot Lakes, Minnesota. We have 12 ladies coming for an immersive healing and sacred time. So that is all in a nutshell. I've had years where I've lost money. I've had years where I make money. This is my first year I'm paying myself appropriately. And by that, I mean something. I worked many long years for nothing because I would just serve. But I caution anybody that what comes with that, inevitably, in my opinion, is compassion fatigue and burnout. So it didn't last long. And I realized my boundaries had to be more firm. I had to have a balance, and I had to get paid appropriately, because mission takes money, and I have a family that I need to support, and I need to be okay with that. So that was a really big shift for me a few years back. And this year I made it a point to pay myself, at least what I made as a teacher before I started. So as you can imagine, it's not a whole lot, but it's definitely much more than I had ever taken prior to support the mission. So that's us in a nutshell. I'm going to go through a few questions here that people have. Never take notes again. Okay, I don't know what that is. No technical difficulties, donations. Please provide information again. Oh, the conference. Donna, I hope that I provided information for that. It is Norfolk, Virginia, October, I believe it's 26, 27, 28. It's like a Thursday, Friday, I believe. Jane, I'm
Great.
sorry about
Thank you.
PowerPoint. Yes, you're welcome. There's going to be a lot of us from Minnesota coming. So if you come, we hope to connect.
Great.
I love the sound bath that I participated in. That's Ashley Bailey. That's so awesome. That's my favorite to receive as well. The sound baths are incredible. Deborah says, I've been to a sound bath, studying polyvagal, Briga, nice, binaural beats. Check out Insight Timer. Yep. You beat me to it there, Deborah, because that was on my list. I love it too. It's such a great way to calm, get you in your body and spice up the creative side of your brain. Can you share a bit more of how you started your business? What steps did you take and how did you market it? Yes. So before I go on with that, okay. Social media, Facebook and Instagram has changed a lot since I've already started. I did a lot on social media, and I did a lot of lunch and learns and speaking engagements and got out in front of people, because when people met me and saw what I do, I also hosted free anxiety workshops or groups. So things to get people to come out. And again, I did it all for pro bono for free and fun things to help get people there. If you go back and you find us, it's the Hive Waconia. I'll probably put that in the chat, and you can scroll all the way back to some of the things that we did in the very beginning. And it's just we were so committed to the mission, and it's really about showing up, being consistent, and every single day, doing something towards the business. So I did a lot of speaking, lunch and learns, wellness fairs, expos, collaborating. I collaborated with nonprofits, the Live-In Foundation and Brighter Day Grief Center when I first started. So because the Chinese proverb is, you want to go fast, go alone. You want to go far, go together. And my motto is, if you want to go far fast, you have to find your tribe, right? Your people. So collaborating, finding different people who are established and doing the work. And I will give you anything and everything you guys want. I've provided, there's a business called The Roots in Eclair. I think it's Eclair, Wisconsin. She basically copied, our business model, top to bottom, software, everything. And you know what I did? I donated $1,000 to her to start up her first brick and mortar, because that is what peer support specialists do, right? There is enough to go around. And when somebody's doing a mission similar to yours, let's get going. I will tell you that my only startup cost that I had in the beginning was lawyer fees in setting up waivers, liabilities, disclaimers. I really recommend that, because working with a vulnerable community, right, where things could go awry quickly, being highly trained in knowing your scope of practice and having those resources to provide people if there's a crisis or, what have you. So I did do that. It was really scary. I said, this is why nobody's done this before, because it's all the ways like a good business lawyer can, they find all the ways you possibly could be sued. And then you write up essentially like a liability waiver to counter that, right? So people, like when you go to do like anything physical and you look at all the waivers and it's like, basically if you die, you can't sue them, right? So same thing. And I do that for those that come in. We have ethical standards that we all abide to, and we're really, we have great boundaries with that as well. What kind of legal advice, there you go, do you use legal? I think that's what you're talking about, Deborah, is like, I had my lawyer draw up all of the, like I said, documents, liability, disclaimers, and really being transparent what it is that we do, right? Whenever somebody calls me a therapist or a counselor, we do use the word counseling and coaching and consulting like interchangeably when people really don't understand what a peer support specialist is. But I constantly use an opportunity to get them like, explain what it is a peer support specialist does. What type of business license do you need? Is a peer support certification required? So yes, I mean, like not necessarily for like what we do, we're peer support ran entity and focus. Like I said, we do have Reiki coaches, those different modalities, but at our essence, we do not need, in the state of Minnesota where I live, you do not need to have a business approved and licensed. You can just pop up a business where I am a member of the chamber and all the different ways of, again, to collaborate. Can you email the business plan? Yep. Is attorney only biz attorney or a specialty in mental health? Good question. Now, here's something I'll share for a second too about, I remember a mentor that was a therapist at the time, and I said, you can't get in trouble for being a good person. And he starts laughing. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, he told me a story of how one of his colleagues was a teacher, and she saw a boy not eating at lunch every week after week. And so she finally gave him money to buy lunch. And this at one point or whatever, it got blown out of proportion. And the teacher was ended up being fired for, like soliciting this kid by giving him money for lunch. And that was, you could probably all think of a story where it went, the intention and motive was pure and good, but it got misconstrued and it turned ugly. So that is what I want to tell you. There has been experiences that I have had. I have insurance for myself, an LLC is the limited liability corporation, meaning if I were to be sued, that they could only take my business, not my personal assets. So I also have insurance, like both trip and fall for the entity, but a specialized insurance that would be, I looked into it after this incident that I had, where it would be the same as a doctor, a psychiatrist, psychologist, right? It's like for a male practice. And it was about $3,000 a year. Now, somebody who's, performing surgeries and whatnot, that may be feasible for them, but I chose not to do that. And I chose to really up my my screenings, like vetting people, really listening to their needs and desires, so that I wasn't getting myself into any sort of predicaments where I wasn't serving this individual, honoring my ethics, the scope of practice, right? Like what it is that we do as peer support. So we have a line that we say that we serve individuals who are in a state of well-being and recovery and wish to stay there. So that is what I'm looking for when people come in, because we don't serve somebody in my particular business that may be, experiencing mania or psychosis or severe self-harm. Like, it's just not what I'm comfortable doing. So in that case, we have those partners and referrals and whatnot to help get them the best support that they deserve. So yeah, so that's a really good question. Any other questions on the business side of things? Like I'll share that each year I've grown revenue wise. We have grown. Revenue is not what I take home. That would be net, or I don't know what the other one is, but I've had to really learn finances and get to the nitty gritty just to make sure that my overhead isn't, kind of overcompensating for what's coming in. So I got a great bookkeeper, and nothing to keep that on track, because it gets messy. We use a scheduling software, and then we use a payment software and a couple other different things that are all integrated for seamless, service, or customer service. That's really helpful. And yeah, the work is amazing. I think partnering and finding out what, if there's places that are independent or privately run, because like I said, in Wisconsin, they have a community initiative where their peers get $80 per peer that they serve, a stipend that comes, it's not an insurance or grant. It must be a grant of some sort. I don't know. But it's just so neat. And then they also get a couple other things. So nonprofits, they are tax exempt and they can apply for grants. LLCs can apply for grants too, in different ways of having people donate money. You just have to claim it as income. That's the only difference. So we will ask for people to, all proceeds from, let's say, an event will go to our scholarship fund, so we can serve those that don't have the financial resources. So there's always a way, always, and just having the open-heartedness to do that. Okay. I think that was insightful information. Just making sure I didn't leave anybody here. Great. Any other questions? Anybody? Anything that you just want to shout out? Anyone?
Yeah, I put in some questions. I'm sorry. This is great. I'm really commend you for your courage and your commitment, and your adjusting as you go along to, seeing what you need, your family needs, and all that kind of stuff. That's really awesome. And, being realistic of how much is put in here. Do you mind me asking, did you have some kind of other support system that supported you financially while you were not making money? I mean,
oh my gosh, you guys.
Yeah. How was that?
I'm married. So I would absolutely say yes, I have my husband, but I will say that there were a lot of sacrifices. I remember hiring the neighbor kid to watch my daughter, right? And I would and I'd go speak at this thing for free, and I'd have to invest gas and whatnot. And then I'd be I did all of that, and I'm in the hole, but it's a non-monetary gain, right? That's how I looked at it. And when I think we have that motive and intent, that I just knew it would come around eventually. So I don't know if you guys know this, but President Biden, the second thing in his initiative, or his first address to the nation of how he was going to fix, or his plan to fix our mental health crisis, and peer support specialists were second on that list. So we got national national attention, and it's been around for, way, 60s, 50s. Like there's some peer supporters that have been doing this 30, 40 years, but it's getting mainstream. So that's really exciting. Even our library hired me to do some mental health talks, and that was a grant. So there's things out there. If you, right, like looking to see where the money is, and if people have grants laying around, it sounds weird, and they can contract, and you guys can be an independent contractor and work for them essentially for that project.
So I'm a member of a kind of a niche thing for people with ADHD. I'm not going to mention because I don't want to seem like I'm promoting, but the owner of that, the president or whatever, he said he purposely, wanted to go nonprofit, similar like you, because he didn't want to have to be obliged to, because everyone's got their, what's the word? Their criteria, and he, like a pharmaceutical company or something like that, right? And so when you started, I think you covered this, right? You talked about, you had a niche, you started narrow and then broadened. Is that what you did? And then,
yeah, exactly.
Right.
And when I did speaking engagements, like 1 or 2 people would come. I mean, it was really, really painful. Like in the beginning, it's like very, like, is this even worth it? Many, many times. And that is how most people, it starts. It's like, we just compare ourselves, right, to these bigger things. And it's like, they all started small. They all started with 1 or 2 people.
Right. So I didn't want to bombard my questions with all these legal stuff, but I'm sure that, you had to evolve. And I can imagine the scenario when you realize you can't help a client and you need to sever the membership, whatever you call it, relationship, membership.
Yep.
Have you figured this out so that you don't have aftermath problems? You know how like in HR, how they fire somebody, because you can imagine the vulnerable population. I don't need to spell it out. Someone BPD, okay, it can go south. So
yeah, you guys, like today, I want to share this. I had a gentleman come in that I wasn't sure if he was, all I know is that he was speaking in, 65 different sentences, this, that, and the other thing. And I've never had to call the non-emergency police on, and I hate to do it, but I'm like, dude, this individual is like, I felt scared and I don't want him to hurt himself. Right. And then he comes back later and he's like, you called the cops on me, and it's like, so it's like, that was the first time that happened, but I've had to let like people go and things. And it's been really hard. I've had people, like, I've gotten into, I had a peer that I did not serve that just came into the entity that filed the bogus restraining order against me. Again, they weren't well, right? And I had to get that off my record. And it was like a $20,000 lesson, right? Like, yeah. And I live in Minnesota, and here the consumer will win. Like it's pretty wild, like the rights of the business owner are very different than the rights of the consumer or the vulnerable person, right? So you have to look at it like I'm like, oh my gosh, I have a target on my back. Like, this is scary.
Wait, excuse me. Do you mind me asking, was it because you were trying to collect or something and they thought it was harassment?
Nope. It had nothing to do with anything. It was just, I was the face of the company, a business. It was really bizarre. Yeah. And like, I just got the brunt of it.
So that was before LLC days?
Yeah.
I don't understand how before LLC days. So that's why okay.
Yeah. So, it's just, again, and I think that goes with anything. Like, if any place, there is an ugly, dark side to anything and everything, but we can't be afraid. We can't be afraid of the dark, because I tell you, there's so much more light and good and positivity that has evolved from this.
I think I need to say out loud that it's amazing that your husband was so supportive, and that's what really is make or break it. If we can't go into this without support, and that goes for even just being a peer as an employee, we need, it takes a village. We can't do this alone.
Yeah, and like I said, you're going to be misunderstood, or like in that thing, it's like I didn't understand like how misunderstood that I think I came across people. And the best, I don't know where you guys are all from, but Terrence Smithers been in the business, like the peer support service for the longest I know of anybody. And I met him in San Diego a few years back at a conference. And I went up to him and I said, Terrence, how do I get people to understand what I'm doing? And he said, and it's the best advice I've ever gotten. And he said, Heather, you don't. You focus on the one that gets what you're doing and the rest will come around. And so in that moment, I stopped trying to convince everybody what I was doing was, so great and grand or defending it, right? I did a lot of defending instead of educating in the beginning. And now it's like, I'd be like so pissed if people are like, what's a peer specialist? Like, it's like the mentally ill serving the mentally ill. And I'm like, ugh. Essentially, yeah, but there's so much more to that and getting to shine a light and then educating and bringing it to a really positive place. So yeah, it is definitely a journey. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Deborah, for asking those questions.
Yeah, the HIPAA question. Do you guys have to are you?
Nope. So HIPAA is only required if you take insurance. It is not, if you don't take insurance, you don't have to be HIPAA compliant in the state of Minnesota.
That wasn't taught to me in my peer advocacy tip. That's important to know.
And again, I could be wrong. I always want to say there's a chance of, but that's what I was taught, that, similarly, when people were going around with COVID saying like, that's a HIPAA infringement if you ask me if I am vaccinated or something. And it's like, no, that is an insurance base. And that is one of the reasons I don't take insurance, because I do not want to comply to HIPAA. I want to do it differently. I have a very open relationship with the peers that I serve in a very ethical, strong boundaries and, but that has been a real game changer for some of them. Mm-hmm. We have just 3 minutes left here. If anybody would like to have a comment or ask anything, I'm happy to ask and receive.
Just appreciating your journey and your sharing of your journey. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. You are so welcome. And I hope with this talk tonight that it activates or, gets that fire going inside of you with whatever work you're doing. Because sometimes that fire can kind of go down to a low, embers. We get a little burnt out and scared but get that fire going and keep serving from your heart and your lived experience, because all of that life experience happened for you, for someone else, right? Like you're the one that gets to speak to their heart and really, really help them feel empowered. Ariel says, do you recommend, oh yes. I just started using tinctures for ashwagandha. So there's a lot of great tinctures out there that help a lot. The ashwagandha, that's a good one for adrenal fatigue and nervous system balancing, let's say. But yeah, I love tinctures and herbal-based, plant-based supplements. For peer supporters, do you use for peer supporters to recommend to their peers? I'm not sure what that one is. Oh yeah, that's the same question there. Got it. Excellent presentation, very heartwarming. Thank you. You're welcome, Donna. I hope that you all had a wonderful day at this conference and that you all, just continue to be the light and share your hearts. And I'm sending you lots of love and light. Have a great rest of your week. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
You bet. Oh, Ariel, I'll ask that about sleep and depression. There are different tinctures for that as well. I like heart. Oh, what is it? Heart. I don't want to misunderstand, but go to a Whole Foods or like a health store and find those tinctures. There's a lot out there for all those different things. Yes. Yep. Tinctures. Can we recommend the therapies? Yes, absolutely. Because and this is why what I say is what worked for you, right? Like, so we can always preface everything we say like this. Hey, this is a buffet, right? The thing is not forcing or being like, coming off as like the expert or somebody that is like, has, seniority over people. That's the thing. It's like, we're equal. So it's like a friendship, and say, I will say, these are some supplements that have worked for me. I just want to give them to you for you to research, ultimately decide if that's something you want to do. You bet. All right, everybody, take care. It's great to meet you. Bye.